Hello everyone. This is going to be a very short video. Today I'm going to be sharing my February books. It was an okay reading month for me. I finished 5 books, some of which I loved and some of which I was very ambivalent about. So let's just get into them. The first book I finished was Breakfast at Tiffany's by Truman Capote. This is a pretty famous movie if you are not living under a rock. It follows the story of Holly Golightly, who is this girl who's flittering about and she's the life of the New York social season. This was my first time reading it. I'd watched the movie many years ago and I remember very little of it, but I feel like the movie left a bigger impression on me than the book. I found the character of Holly to be less likable in this book. I think Audrey Hepburn brought such charm to her when she was playing the role. So once you strip that away and just encounter the character in words, I feel like I like her a lot less. There was very limited character growth. It was very interesting though to see the backstory of Holly Golightly and who she actually is. So if you haven't read the book or watched the movie, some spoilers, she had a very different upbringing than what she presented herself as here in New York. She came from a rather poor family and she had very undesirable circumstances during her childhood, and she kind of ran away and escaped all of that to move to New York and presented herself as something else. So that was very interesting, I thought. But at the end, it was very limited character growth, I think. All the same, I enjoyed getting to read this. I also liked the couple of short stories included in this: House of Flowers, A Diamond Guitar, and A Christmas Memory. So I think House of Flowers was very interesting as well. But overall, I would give this like a 3 stars. It was pretty enjoyable. I think I'm just glad I got to read a Truman Capote classic, if anything. So yeah, that was the first one. My next read was on my Kindle and I read Wings of Starlight by Alison Saff. This is from Disney Press and it tells the story of a young Queen Clarion and her love story with Lord Mallory, which was touched upon but never elaborated on in the Tinkerbell movie The Secret of the Wings. And that movie has shaped my childhood, so of course I had to pick this book up, and it did not disappoint. It made my 8-year-old, 10-year-old self very happy, and it was surprisingly good. I actually liked a lot of the themes within the book. I wrote a page in my reading journal about this book. I guess I've forgotten how mature young adult can be because I haven't read it in so long. There were a lot of themes that were surprisingly mature. Doing what people tell you is the right thing versus doing what you think is the right thing. There's a lot of themes of prejudice, leading with your head and your heart in balance and not letting one overtake the other. Discipline as well, emotional discipline, finding yourself in a world where people are telling you what you should be. All very relatable, all very young adult. I love the star-crossed lovers element to it, and since I already watched the Tinkerbell movie as a kid, I rewatched it again while I was reading this book, just to set the scene. Having that imagery was so helpful in picturing the world, and I can see exactly the bridge where the two worlds met, and it was just so lovely. And I loved Clarion as the main protagonist. I think she is very gutsy, she's brave, and I like her character growth. And we finally see the story of how Lord Mallory broke his wing. I'm not gonna spoil it, but it's great. I read it in 2 days because it was so easy for me to read. I'd recommend it even if you haven't watched the Tinkerbell movie. Yeah, I think if you were at any point in your childhood a fan of Tinkerbell, you should read this book. I don't think it's gonna disappoint you. Okay, so in February, the first book I actually finished was The Prophet by Khalil Gibran. Borrowed my sister's physical copy to read it, so I don't have it with me at the moment. I ended up finishing it on my Kindle because I couldn't finish it in time when I was coming back. I love this book so much. It was incredible. It was so lyrical, so poetic, and it was filled with such profound truths about life. It made me realize that we as humans have known these truths for a very long time now. Some things are just timeless and constant and they will never change. But if you didn't know, The Prophet follows a wise man who has lived away from his home city for many years, and it is his last day. He's about to board a ship and return back to his homeland and to his people. And so the people of the city that he was living in have come to him to see him off, and before he leaves, they implore him to share his last bits of wisdom to them as a kind of guiding light. And so they ask him about all sorts of things that we deal with: love, sin, pleasure, all sorts of things, really, food, life, death. And he answers, and I love the metaphors to nature. Like, he connects it so much with the ways of nature. Like, wind and the sky and the trees and animals and plants. I love that comparison because I'm also personally of the belief that we come from nature, we are nature, and so it only makes sense for us to follow the same rules that apply to nature. And I feel like it's that sense of everything is created perfectly and nothing is created out of balance, and it is we humans who disrupt that balance. I actually did talk about this book in my previous vlog, in my Lunar New Year reading vlog. All the thoughts I go into there as well, but it was incredible. I would highly recommend this as a piece of literature that you must read in your lifetime. Me and like 23 million other people who have read this book, but for a good reason. There are just some pieces of knowledge that we humans have that are timeless. I think probably one of the best books of all time that I've read. So yeah, I think that says it all, really. The next book that I read this month is The Consultant by Im Song-soon. I did not like this book. I had high hopes for it because the premise was written in such a compelling way and it made me so curious. Basically, it follows a man who has been hired by the company to work as a consultant. Capital C company, capital C consultant. So what he does is find ways to murder people as naturally and as faultlessly as possible. The company sends him all the information that he needs, so he works as kind of like a research-based assassin. So he sends them the information and he details exactly how these people are going to be taken out, and he hands that information over to the company and rests easy. Basically, he's been doing this for a while, and then one day he meets someone that he cares about. Later on, he discovers that the company is targeting this person. So that's the way it was laid out in the blurb, right? It fell so flat for me. I was still harboring some hopes in the beginning and towards the middle because I thought maybe it's just slow paced and maybe the action will pick up. But when the aforementioned person enters this narrative and then reappears, it's done in the most lifeless, flat way possible. I also really don't like the narrator because it's a very misogynistic lens that this writer is approaching it from. Very bleak outlook on life, and he just goes on these random monologues about random facts about killing. At one point he's like, doctors are meant to be the best serial killers because they're able to, they have all the medical knowledge needed, blah 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 blah. He just goes on these random tangents that are completely irrelevant to the story quite a few times. And so I appreciate the information dump, like that's great knowledge for me, but it really didn't contribute to the story. What did happen was really not impactful in any way, shape, or form. I did not feel for any of these characters. I did not care for any of them. I hated the way that he was describing women. Like, all the women in this narrative are being described as objects of fantasy in quite a degrading way. And so I really didn't like it. On top of that, I feel like the writing was quite clunky. It was very disjointed. It's almost read like kind of like a report. Nothing lyrical or nuanced about it, in my opinion. So it left me feeling very angry and I didn't like it. And I finished it just because I needed to find out, because I invested so much time into this book. Excuse the lighting. It suddenly is getting very gloomy and it's about to rain. It's coming. You can see it. Yeah, but that was that. I did not like it. The final book I finished in February is Everything You Ever Wanted by Louisa Sama. This one is a dystopia. I've talked about it as well in a previous reading vlog, but it follows this woman named Iris who is suffering from some form of depression, and she's sick of the world and her job and her life. She applies to become one of the 100 residents on this new planet. So in this world, they've discovered a new planet and they can live on it and become the first humans to basically populate and settle on this new planet. And the only catch is that once she goes, she's never able to return back to Earth. Like, there is no way back to planet Earth. She goes and it details her life before she goes and on this planet, so on Earth and on the planet, which is called Nyx. Her life on Nyx served as a very good contrast as to, oh my god, it's getting really dark, huh? But her life on Earth was presented first, and then I think I appreciated it a lot more after we got to the chapters where she was on Nyx. I started seeing that, it was obviously the wrong decision to move away and leave her entire life behind for a planet that has nothing on it. They're not allowed to leave the compound that they are settling in. It's a very short-term plan that was not revealed at the start. The supplies are running out after several years. Medicine has run out. People have gotten depressed because there's nothing to do, and they start to regret leaving, and they start to regret not just owning up to the challenges that they were facing back then and just facing them head on. I wouldn't say it was a great read. I wasn't mind blown or anything, but it did give me a lot of perspective. It makes you appreciate the simple pleasures that life on Earth has to offer, because throughout the book, as she settles into her life on the planet, she starts to list out things that she misses. She was very ambivalent about these things in the past, or she didn't really care that much about these things. After several years on this planet, she moves, and the perspective has really shifted for her. So I liked it in the sense that it gave me the reminder that life on Earth is actually not so bad, you know? Other than that, I didn't really like it that much either. So would I recommend it? I think I would, but not very enthusiastically, if that makes sense. It's still worth a read, I think. That's that. Those are the books that I read. The weather is getting really bad. I apologize for this lighting. So all in all, it wasn't the best reading month. Oh god, it's raining. Oh goodness gracious. The rain is so bad right now. The wind is absolutely nuts. But yeah, it wasn't the best reading month. There were those books that made me really angry, but overall it was fun. I have a lot of exciting reads planned for March already. I did that video on my childhood books at the start of March, so that's like 4 extra books under my belt. I'm excited to share my March reads with you, which I will do in the next video. I think it's going to be a reading vlog, but I'm currently reading this actually, Under the Eye of the Big Bird by Hiromi Kawakami. It was a long list on the Booker Prize, and this is recommended to me by the quiz that the Booker Prize had put out about which book you should read from the long list. So I picked this up. We'll share my thoughts on this in the next video or whenever I get around to finishing it. Thank you for watching. See you next time.